Hello, my name is Lewis McIntosh, and this is my video for the initial ideas I have for my own digital magazine. And reviewing my initial ideas is Lewis Draper, and now I would like to show you the document for my initial ideas. So the title, the genre magazine that I basically want my digital magazine to be about is basically film and TV magazine, because I know a lot about movies and TV shows, and so this is a very good easy subject for me to work on and do research for, because I already know a lot about this stuff. So the subject I really would like to include is superhero movies and TV shows, specifically like WandaVision and Batwoman, and possibly Batwoman if I get a chance, but also include stuff like the history about superhero movies throughout the decades, like from the 1980s to the present, like Batman, Spider-Man, and Avengers Endgame. I'll possibly might mention a little bit about the recent superhero movie that came out around about at Christmas, Wonder Woman 1984, and two of the ideas I would like to have my magazine to, two of the titles I would like my magazine to be about is either Super Updates or Multiverse Extravaganza, because both of them do sound like very good, catchy titles, and they do match with the subject of superheroes, because superheroes do like to have like different parallel universe and stuff like that. Yeah. So the target audience I really want the magazine to be aimed for is both genders, but mostly aimed for ages between 14 years old to 24 years old, because that way it'll be shown for teenagers, but also shown for young adults who actually do like hearing about TV, like hearing about superhero movies and TV shows, but which also matches these following other target audience. Specifically for the psycho demographic, I decided to go with the mainstream route, because they're more about people who trust the brand that they buy, so that way when they actually know a lot about this stuff to begin with, and know that this is kind of relevant subject and very reliable sources that they're reading. And the geo demographic I'm aiming for is basically like a wide variety of people, because I know it's like if it's like one for like Pacific race or something, but I feel like I want to aim it for like a wide variety of races, like white, black, Asian, etc. So that way, because quite a lot of people do actually like hearing about comic book films and actually read comic books, like thanks to the movies like the MCU and the DCEU, just to name a few, and of course the Arrowverse. Yeah. And also, obviously, the generation is going to be from people who were born between the mid 1990s to the early 2000s. Yeah. So obviously, the interactive elements that I would definitely like to include in my magazine is, of course, images connected to the sources I'm going to talk about, and some video links to videos on YouTube that of reviewers or theorists explaining that it has something connected to the certain topics that I'm talking about in my magazine. Yeah. And the second interactive elements that I could possibly include in my magazine is, of course, the comment/feedback box for people who read the comment and see what they actually think about it, and possibly even add a social media button, so that way they can, if they really do like it, they can share on their social media, so that way other people can get a chance to read it too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now for interviews, I don't know. I don't think I'll be including any interviews in my magazine, because I don't know who exactly I can talk about that's connected to these topics. But I can double check to see if any of my classmates or family members can see if they want to mention something about Wonder Woman 1984 or the latest or the latest version of WandaVision, depend when I actually start working on this project. And I could possibly give them a quote about what they thought about it in my actual magazine. Yeah. So the so for my photography, I'm going to be including some source images that match some of the topics I'm talking about. Like for instance, I'm going to include like a poster of WandaVision, maybe even include a poster of Wonder Woman 1984. But also I could possibly like for my own photos, I could take a picture of the DVD cases for Batman from 1989 and Spider-Man from 2002. Yeah. So my primary research that I want to have a look at is basically I'm going to create a questionnaire about digital magazines and the types of content that I want to include in it, so that way I get a better understanding of how much stuff I can say about this stuff, and I can see whether or not I can include like the subjects I don't want to talk about, to see if I actually do want to include that in my magazine. Yeah. And for the secondary research, I'm going to see if I can find articles and web pages that are connected to some of the sources that I'm going to be talking about, but also try to find videos about these topics to see that way I can get other people's opinions and see which one I can include in my magazine. But more importantly, I'm going to see if I can try to watch the movies Wonder Woman 1984, Batman from 1989, and Spider-Man from 2002. So that way I'll get a clear understanding about the movies and see how they hold up as a superhero movie and why people like watching them so much. So that way I can be able to analyze them in my actual magazine. Yep. And that's it. Lewis, would you like to give me any feedback?
You definitely have a really clear understanding of where you want to take this. You have lots of topics you can discuss. My only question is, with these topics, you've got so many topics to talk about. Do you plan on having many little short paragraphs on them, or are you going to bring them together as a whole and make it have like one big topic with all of these topics as like short subtopics? How are you going to play that out?
Well, I hopefully plan. Well, I actually plan to have, because some of them are just like brief little reviews, like this movies I'm going to analyze, like for instance, Spider-Man, Batman, and possibly Avengers Endgame if I got the chance. I'm just going to do like a brief summary of how they hold up, because it's also going to be connected of how the superhero movies have changed so much throughout the decade. So that way I can explain like how this movie holds up as a superhero movie, and basically how it stands out on its own, and then so on and so forth. Really. So I'm gonna
Okay.
but I'm gonna go into more detail for other stuff, because possibly I want to make sure I include mainly about the WandaVision, since it is a relevant show now. So unfortunately, that's going to be like my connection from possibly if I do decide to watch, because basically it's a relevant show now, and it's going to be like the connection between a couple of the movies that I'm going to be talking about.
Right. Okay. And with this questionnaire, do you think you should push for a questionnaire, or do you feel as if you don't need it? Because you seem unsure with the way you explained it. It sounds like you would like one, but at the same time you don't need it because you've got all these topics. It's one of those things. What do you think?
Well, I would like to have to do a questionnaire, so that way I at least have other people's opinion about this magazine. So, because like I said, some of the stuff I'm a little bit unsure about to do, like whether or not I should try to do a brief review about Wonder Woman 1984, or see if I can add Avengers Endgame in my magazine, so that way I can figure out what stuff I need to do research for, so that way I can be able to figure out which movies I can look at and which movies I don't have to bother looking at.
Okay. And one more thing. With your questionnaire, is there anything specific you're going to put in movie-wise? As in, are you going to try and find out what people would like to hear about personally? Because getting their opinion, I feel like, would help to close down on what topics you plan to talk about.
Yes, well, I definitely plan to ask them at least like which which is their favorite the, the favorite superhero movie, like as their own, but also make sure to pick out like the movies that I'm going to be talking about in my magazine, like which one do they really prefer talking about, and which one they think is the most relevant, really, like so that way I can figure out so that way I can know whether or not I actually want to include that in my magazine.
So you want to see if they feel like it'll be relevant for them before you make a decision. Okay, that's good. That's everything I've got. Thanks for sharing with me.
No problem.
Right.
And that's it for this video.